Greetings everybody, I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. This is a channel that is dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. My name is Murph and I am the host of this show. So we're doing an episode of What's New, comes out on Saturday every week, and which I choose a new album that came out from the year that we're presently in, which is 2024. Generally, I try to stick to progressive rock, but I have had other bands on here and other albums on here that are in the other realms, metal, hard rock, pop rock, that kind of stuff. And today we've chosen a band that I bypassed a long time ago. A couple times I had it as backup and I never got into it, and I decided today it had to finally come to fruition. We're talking about Ellesmere and their album Strange Skies. Okay, so this album came out, I originally think I had it written down as January the 12th, but I think it was actually the 21st of January. So it's been some time and I've let it slide too long, but it has to go in. I got to get it in for the year. So we'll be doing this album January 21st, 2024. About 47, a little over 47 minutes and like 47 and a half, somewhere in there. Labels in the AMS record label. So the appearing for Ellesmere for the band are Roberto Vitelli on bass and keyboards, Matthias Olsson on drums, we've seen him before in a few bands, John Wilkinson on vocals, and Giacomo Anselmi on guitar. So also in addition to this, we have a few other musicians that fill in here and there for certain parts. So we have Clive Nolan on keyboards, Graham Taylor on acoustic guitar, Thomas Bowden on keyboards, John Hackett on flute, the John Hackett, brother of Steve, David Jackson on sax and wind instruments, Bob Hodges on keyboards, Stefano Verichelli, sorry, I have a hard time with that one, on keys, and Riccardo Romano on vocals, backing vocals that is, and 12-string acoustic guitars. This album has a very kind of worldly proggy cover to it. It's an alien planet with some alien animal on the cover of it. It's a pretty actually nice cover, I think. Very smooth looking. So there are 6 tracks on this, and sorry I'm being proliferated with flies today. It's what happens when you move your herbs off the balcony and put them in the kitchen without spraying them first. Yeah, this stuff happens all the time. So anyways, we have 6 tracks here. The opening track is called Northwards. It's about 6:50 in length. I gave this a 6.5. It's very symphonic, melodic, catchy tune, great production, and very keyboard dominated. I do like this track quite a bit. I gave it a 6.5. As an opening track, doesn't normally happen. Usually I start out slow and work my way up, and in this case I didn't. The next track out is 6:43 in length. It's called Tundra. Gave it a 7. Vocals were clear, medium range, strongly dominant. This particular track, the vocals are very frontal here, and they got that kind of Phil Collins-like feel to them as well. Keyboards are also very dominant on this track. You got a strong rhythm, drum and bass rhythm section here going on, and this is a pretty heavy track, and I gave it a 7 like I said. Next track out is called Crystallized. This is an acoustic guitar opening. Very melodic, very clear sounding. It builds to an electric guitar taking over and dominance, and then you got this kind of catchy melodic rhythm going on throughout the entire track, and has a strong sax part towards the end. I gave this a 6.5. Now on to the final 3 tracks on the album, which are, the last 2 are actually the 2 longest on the album, and I did forget to write the length of the final tracks, but I know it's over 12 minutes. So the next track is 4 minutes and 16 seconds, called Arctic. I gave this a 6, it's the lowest score on the album, but not because it's a bad song, it's just that I didn't like it as much as some of the other stuff. That's all there was to it. Very keyboard dominated, both with the solo and the keyboard parts. Again, the vocals very Collins-like, but not as clear, kind of a kind of a little bit murky, hidden by a lot of the instrumentation, I think. And the drums were very complicated. I think this is one of the more complicated drum parts on the album. Next up is the title track, Strange Skies, 12:17 in length. I gave this one a 6.5, so maybe a little bit on the average side for the album. It has a voice kind of talking, singing part at the beginning, followed by vocals, very melodic. The bells are, then it has a bell and organ section where you're actually hearing that church organ very dominant on this song. More melodic, more epic, I think, in scope. Vocals very Collins-like again. Very symphonic, dominated track, I think. And they do finish with this flute and a kind of medieval sound to the song. So there's that last bit of the song, maybe the last couple of minutes, is that little bit of that medieval sound that you might find with a band like Griffin or something like that. But absolutely killer, very clear sounding. Next up is the final track, Another World. This one's over 12 minutes. Forgot to write the amount down for it, so hope you'll forgive me for that. Got a little bit of these weird noises in the opening, followed with a very heavy electric guitar part. Beefy, actually, might be a word to describe it. Another very Collins-like sound on the vocals, very catchy track. It starts and from start to peak and becomes a more subdued track as it goes along. So at the beginning, it's pretty dominant, pretty out there, and then it just kind of becomes a little more subdued towards the end, where you have this kind of flute and piano and symphonic part at the end. So you've got somebody playing a flute, somebody playing a piano in a quiet mode with a synthesizer background on it. So an absolutely a good track. I like this track quite a bit. I gave it a 7. I think that is actually, the two highest are both 7. So this is one of the 2 songs that I liked quite a bit. I actually like this album enough to go and buy it. I will be looking for it, of course, along with about 100 other albums, but this is definitely one I would like to be on. I would say overall I found this album to be very symphonic, great instrumentation, Phil Collins-like vocals. So in actual part, there's some parts where he sounds kind of like Phil Collins. These are the heavier tracks. As it gets quieter, his voice doesn't sound as much like Phil Collins because you can hear it a little bit clearer. You have a lot of very complex arrangements here, I think. Not overly complex, but complex enough to be prog for sure. And some well-written, catchy tunes here. Very pleasant to the ear. Within that Genesis type range of sound, but I never once thought of this as a Genesis song. I didn't feel there was much Genesis here, like it wasn't a Genesis kind of earquake or anything like that. It was just a little bit, they were within that range. The only thing Genesis-like was probably the vocals, which are very Phil Collins-like, and of course John Hackett is on the album, so there's your connection to Genesis as well. An excellent album. I think it's one that makes me want to explore. Sorry, I'm getting a fly here in my face again. Making me want to explore more of the catalog of this band, and I think that's probably. I was trying to think of a band that I wanted to spend some time exploring their catalog, and I think this might be the one I start with this week. So anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please hit the like, subscribe, and the notification bell. Any comments about Ellesmere or the album or anything I've said, you can put those in the comments section. If you got any recommendations about this band, what album I should maybe go to next, I'd be interested in hearing that as well. Anyways, I hope that you've had a good day and a good evening, and we will see you next week for another episode of What's New. Take care and goodbye.